In a small town in Maryland, a 13-year-old boy started to feel a darkness grow within him. Roland Doe, as he would go to be known, started to tell his parents of scratching noises emanating from his floors and walls at night. But once the boy started to show signs of intense possession, they did all that was left: call their priest. Little did they know, Roland would go on to be one of the most frightening cases of possession in known history. This is the story of the exorcism of Roland Doe. That was a good fucking smooth one.
I didn't want to say anything, but that was fucking the best intro I think you've done. You did it in one shot.
That was smooth as
great,
fuck.
man.
You know what it is? I've been holding this in for 3 weeks. I am metaphorically and physically fucking bleeding exorcisms. I've been reading about it as exorcisms. All my media is exorcism related. I started getting just conference talks of exorcisms to be suggested to me on YouTube.
Okay.
It's been a really weird research week. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the I'm Not Crazy podcast. My name is Andrew. I am your host. We're joined today by the lovely Chris.
One adjective? That's it?
I couldn't think of a single other adjective after lovely.
All right. You know what? I'll take it. Thank you so much for having me.
My Syrian crusader on the other side of this table.
You
here.
know what? That's fucking excellent. I'll take that one, too.
Syrian crusader.
Yeah.
We love Chris. Good to have you back, buddy.
I think if I was a wrestler, I think that would be my nickname.
The Syrian crusader.
Hell yeah.
That's pretty fucking sick. Honestly.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I'm really excited for this episode.
This episode's gonna be real juicy.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like a big old steak.
Because last week we really dove deep into this. First time I ever watched that movie.
Oh, look at who said what did you say? What did you say?
Oh,
What
wow.
did you say? Look at that, you motherfuckers.
Holy
Tell
crap.
me I don't get involved in my own show.
That's really excellent.
I don't even know what that means. All the haters gonna hate.
Okay.
You know, gotta BK, have it your way.
Is that an original merchandise?
I got it on Amazon. It was printed onto a t-shirt that I chose any colored. I don't think it's original, no. So hello, once again, welcome to the show. This has gone off the rails. We have an 8-page script to get through, so we really don't have time to do what we're doing. But I'm just so happy to be on a microphone.
Yeah.
Please rate the show, review the show, follow the show on TikTok. Go watch the last episode before this was Jose. That episode, I still haven't gotten that out as of the time of recording this. It's been a crazy little bit of time, but that's going to be out. Go watch the interview with Carla.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We talk about some stuff, some mysteries. It's great. Go do it. Enjoy. Have a good one. Okay. We're going to get into the sources of this episode.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Sure.
Sources for this episode are going to be mainly from the article, The Haunted Boy of Cottage City, The Cold Hard Facts Beyond the Story That Inspired The Exorcist. Quite the easy to remember title. Very concise and to the point.
Okay.
It's written by a man named Mark Opsasnik. Following closely by the documentary on Discovery Plus, also titled The Exorcism of Roland Doe. Both of them go into detail of the story and give testimony from priests involved, friends of Roland Doe, and much more, which we will go on to see in a bit. Now, when you hear the exorcism of blank, 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 the first thing your brain says is movies, and that is because we have the exorcism of Emily Rose, the exorcism of The Haunting in Connecticut.
No.
We have The Taking of Deborah Logan, which is a fucking fantastic Exorcist movie. We have The Exorcist, The Exorcist 2, Jeffrey Dahmer's favorite, The Exorcist 3. And we have so many Exorcist religious-based horror movies that are specifically religious-based to Christianity that it's impossible to not acknowledge the movie The Exorcist. And also it would help that this is the story that actually inspired The Exorcist specifically.
Yeah.
So, before we go any further, the book and movie, both titled The Exorcist, it is by, we'll get to that later, are both loosely based off of this story, while also breathing new life into the old tale.
Okay.
The initial release of The Exorcist was a cultural phenomenon, with audience members regularly throwing up in the aisles, fainting from stress, and even having a few heart attacks during its run in theaters. And this is not an exaggeration. I watched a weird amount of footage. I don't understand why they have so much footage available of people standing in line watching The Exorcist. It's so strange how much footage there is of people standing in line for The Exorcist.
Yeah.
But people are walking out like, I was just passing out. I had to go sit outside for a minute. I smoked half a pack of cigarettes and I came back in with my milkshake and I knew I was good to go. And it's like this little girl, and it's like, do you like horror? And she's like, I fucking love it. I like when they're dead. And it's like these people are psycho. These are our grandparents and parents, right?
Yeah.
This movie changed the realm of horror. It changed what people thought horror could be, and it became almost like the place to go. Like the level that you have to reach if you want to have like an influential horror movie from that point forward. The Exorcist is unbelievably influential.
Right.
And like you said, we watched it.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it since I was a kid.
Sure.
There were some scenes that were absolutely shocking in it.
Yeah.
It is still decently scary. I wasn't like shitting my pants scared, but it's creepy as fuck. It's fun.
Yeah.
I think my favorite part is when the 12-year-old girl grabs her mother, puts it to her vagina, and says, "Lick me." That was fucking totally, absolutely
I
shocking.
I genuinely wasn't expecting that at
that
time.
part happened, and the two of us
was
were sitting on the couch, and
crying.
we were like, "What the fuck?" Because she just goes, "Lick me," and it was like, "Oh my god, I forgot that was in there." Holy shit!
No, but I can really attest to the heart attacks because when I left this place, I left your apartment that night, and I was scared shitless. Because I can watch horror movies, but like it's not like my favorite pastime. Like I know you can sit through it, and
I
it doesn't
am
even
jaded
affect
as
you.
fuck.
Yeah.
I could watch a man be murdered.
Sure. So I left here. I got in my car. Like everything was fine. It was a little windy out. Nothing too out of the ordinary. But then I got home, and what time was it? Like 1 o'clock.
I want to say
maybe?
you left at like, I don't know, because I started getting sick, so I was delusional. by the
Yeah,
time left.
that's true.
I passed out as soon as you left, and then I was out.
Let's estimate it at 1.
That's fair.
Yeah, I got home, and usually no one's awake. Like my mom will get up at like 3. Like that's her normal time to wake up. But bro,
AM?
Yeah, and everything's cool. And then I see my garage light was on, so that usually means my mom's in there. She's just having a cigarette, just doing her thing. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I don't even think about it, and I'm thinking like, oh, she's in the garage, whatever. So I walk in the door, and so basically my door, like there's a staircase to go up, and then there's a staircase to go down to the basement. So as I'm looking up, there's the kitchen, and then there's like a backlight, like where the stove is. So only that's on, and everything else is dark.
Mhm.
And I open the door, and I just see a silhouette of a girl. And I literally grab my chest. I'm like, what the fuck? Why does this have to happen today? Of all days, the day after, and like 15 minutes after I watched The Exorcist. And I mean, it's my fucking mom standing there waiting for me to come in. I'm like, Jesus, like you picked the worst fucking day to do this.
That's fantastic.
And she was crying, laughing the whole time.
I mean, the movie, like, really,
it was great,
it
though.
scares the shit out of people.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
still, even to this day, like,
It's very
anybody that I
creepy.
told about this episode, and I was like, it's based off, it's what The Exorcist was based off, they were like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, man, this really had an impact. you know?
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of people, this is like the horror movie that they saw,
Mhm.
what that made them not want to watch horror movies anymore.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah,
You
no,
know?
that's pretty wild. I would never expect that. I kind of want to watch more.
Yeah. I someone that was in my life for a long time that is no longer in my life.
Sure.
That's a respectful way to put it,
Yeah.
right? This bitch from my past. She saw The Exorcist as a kid,
Okay.
and it totally scarred her. She did not like horror movies at all because of it.
Damn.
Yeah, that's why I said that. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
but she was weak. So some people give it the coveted scariest film of all time title. A lot of people give it that, and I would say it is, for the time that it was made and everything that's in it and what went into it and the effects and all that stuff. I would also say it is an incredible horror movie. It is still scary. If you watch it, you see the influence it gave to future horror movies. Everything that came after it makes sense.
Sure.
It's an unbelievable film. It goes into the darker side of Christianity, aka exorcisms, bringing the story of Roland Doe to the forefront of exorcism lore.
Roland
So
Doe.
basically, because of this movie, the story of Roland Doe has become one of the more famous exorcist stories of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, we're going to go back a little further from the 20th century. We're going to get a very brief history of exorcisms. And of course, I'm going to give a brief history of exorcisms with a full series definitely in the future of the show. Yeah. The exorcism can be traced back to basically every single ancient civilization on the planet. I don't know why I can't speak right now. On planet Earth. Right. Every single one of them has some type of expelling of demon or expelling of spirit. Whether it's positive or negative, there's some type of ritual for it. What that says, I am not trying to make a grand point. With the expelling of evil spirits or demons being done in a large variety of ways, as I said, but today we are going to focus on the Christian rite of exorcism, which can be traced directly to Jesus and his followers. According to the New Testament, Jesus, the light, had the ability to exorcise demons, with him passing the power over to his followers, allowing them to exorcise demons, but not nearly as effectively, because God is, OP, and they needed to nerf it in the next update. This was then used to justify future exorcists, though the method greatly varied depending on the time and place of the exorcism. Okay. So basically, from the time of the founding of Christianity, because there was such a long history and base in the Jewish religion that had so much of that influence that got twisted and moved into the Christian religion. Not twisted, it got adapted into the Christian religion. There's very quickly became within the first 300-400 years, this culture of people getting possessed and then, them being rid of the demons.
Sure.
Fast forward to Middle Ages, exorcism will become much more popular throughout Europe, with religious authorities using them to rid demons from the supposedly possessed people, while also definitely not using it to control everyone through financial gain, because they would charge for these. It was definitely because everyone had demons in them.
Oh, yeah.
The belief of the time was that every saint, now this is very important to remember for later in the story, but it's going to be a while before this comes up again, so try to bank this away.
Okay? Yeah.
The belief of the time was that every saint had a demon counterpart. So Saint Johnny on the spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had a demon, what's it to you?
Okay, so is
there's just always
angel and devil on the shoulder,
but they're always the same guy. So they're always they're battling for eternity.
Yeah,
this isn't a religious podcast. If you've never listened to an episode before, this is not a religious podcast in any way. I was raised Catholic, went to Catholic school. I'm not. I would say Catholic. I am nothing. We are nothing. We are dust.
We will be dispersing the Eucharist in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Don't take it unless you have been. So there was this constant battle with good and evil between saints, and for every saint there was a demon, which seems really convenient that every single time a saint was canonized, they'd be like, all right, we have another excuse for a demon. They'd pull the big lever and a big demon will walk out. It's really stupid. So the goal of exorcists of the time was to first figure out the demon's name, George. They had a George. Saint George. So you had George the demon and Saint George.
Okay.
And then they'd be like, all right, well, Saint George's gonna come get you, and you'd be like, no, and then the demon would be expelled. That's how things were done in the Middle Ages.
Interesting.
If it sounds dumb, it's because it is.
Yeah.
It's super dumb. It's super fucking stupid.
They made it look easy.
And these rituals advanced and advanced until modern day, or did they? Foreshadowing. Mostly fading out from use.
Yeah.
Modern exorcisms are heavily vetted, quote unquote, using a set of rules to make sure the possessed, quote unquote, are actually just that.
Okay.
Just like Father Karras explained in The Exorcist. Every possible other explanation needs to be fleshed out first before an officially sanctioned exorcism can take place. This made official sanctioned exorcisms, specifically before the release of the film, extremely rare, but they did happen. And that leads us right into our story.
Hell yeah.
So now, exorcisms, there are more exorcisms happening in modern day than there were for the last 200 years. Isn't that crazy?
Is this just because of the movie?
It started because of the movie, almost definitely. The Exorcist introduced exorcism back into, like, culture, and they were like, oh!
Let's do it!
Yeah, your mother's six cocks in hell. And then they'd be like, I'm possessed now, and it's just fucking schizophrenia. It's just schizophrenia.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
The story of Roland Doe. Okay, this story is super fucking dense. We're about to go into the Amazon of episodes here.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say, take your machete of knowledge, put it into the holster of courage, and put on them steel toe boots. Cause we're about to get walking. I don't know why I put on a southern accent. They don't sound like that in the Amazon. Yeah. But I'm American. This is America.
Fuck yeah. Get her done.
That's weird because there's a reference to him later in the episode, and that's so strange.
There's no way.
I swear to God, this Hold on. Hold on.
What the fuck does Larry the Cable Guy have to do with exorcism?
No. I made a joke.
Oh.
Well, we'll get to it. There's a Larry the Cable Guy reference later, and that's insane.
Is hysterical.
Okay. All right. So, though we'll be referring to him as Roland Doe, the pseudonym that the boy would eventually be known by, his real name is allegedly Ronald Edwin Hunkler. Hunkler.
What a name.
It's bad.
Okay.
Since this isn't 100% confirmed, technically, I'm going to say 99% confirmed that is his fucking name. But we can't say 100% because how the fuck are we going to confirm that 100%? So we're going to stick with Roland.
Yeah,
Roland Doe is easier to say, realistically.
Rolls off the tongue.
He was a 14-year-old boy from Cottage City, Maryland. There's a lot of this debate on where he's actually from, but Cottage City seems to be the widely accepted answer. With a lot of his background being a total mystery. From what we do know, it seems that Roland was a high-energy kid, ADHD, who seemed to have trouble focusing in school and getting himself in trouble. But was still said to be a decently good kid by those around him. As far as his background, that's as much as we know. We do know that Roland was very close with his Aunt Tilly. He has an Aunt Tilly. It's 1949. So stereotypical.
Yeah.
Who seemed to have an interest in the occult and spiritualism, which wasn't really uncommon for the time. With her owning and using the dreaded Ouija board. She would show this to Roland a few times. Hey, Roland, look at my Ouija board. Along with some other stuff, and usually telling him that he needed to be careful. But tragedy would strike. And Aunt Tilly would pass suddenly sometime in January 1949, having a devastating effect on Roland. It was also around this time, usually cited as January 15th, that something strange started to happen. Roland, it was the beginning of tax season. Roland, along with both of his parents, claimed to hear scratching, which then evolved into knocking all over the house. It went from to all over. Imagine you're just trying to sleep and it's like, hello! They even called out to Aunt Tilly, thinking she was trying to contact them from beyond the grave. Hey, Tilly, shut the fuck up! With her answering with 3 knocks as they requested. Tilly, if it's you, knock 3 times. That was 5 times. Roland started waking up to his bed shaking. Becoming more and more violent as time went on. So the first night it was like do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Second night it's like do-do-do-do-do-do. The third night it's just fucking comedically like this crazy. And he's just like, Ma! My bed! You know? He would randomly start to jerk himself unnaturally. His body, not his penis. Speaking in a voice that wasn't his, quote unquote. The family was starting to think whoever answered them actually wasn't Aunt Tilly, after all. Dude. Who would have thought it wasn't Aunt Tilly? Aunt Tilly, one of her favorite things to do was to violently thrash the bed around and scare the fuck out of her beloved nephew. You know? It's so weird that that's not Aunt Tilly.
Walking in, seeing your kid like that?
Yeah. It wasn't Aunt Tilly after all. Yeah. Shit. The things happening to Roland aren't just isolated to his home. Okay? And this is something that we may be getting a little ahead of ourselves, but we'll touch on this more later.
Sure.
With school being a nightmare for the seemingly possessed kid. It's also said that books would fly off his table and he'd start speaking in the same mysterious voice he did at home. His peers, knowing him as a bit of a prankster, thought it all to be a big joke, even though Roland swore that it wasn't. But nobody believed him, so his parents pulled him out, not knowing what else to do. And there's some back and forth on that. Some people believe he was actually kicked out, and it's cited that he was kicked out because his desk was moving on its own. That is not in any ounce of truth whatsoever.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit. I don't know why people say that. I don't understand where that came from.
Yeah. This kid went through a lot of shit.
But imagine you go to school and you have something that during the time people like researchers know about.
Right.
They have a name for it.
Sure.
But it's not studied and there's no real evidence of what it does to a person. So you go to school and you just have like these tics or like these weird mannerisms that people don't understand. Yeah. And you're like, I promise I'm not doing this on purpose. And everybody's like, nah, man, you're doing it on purpose. And then they start to exercise you for having a demon in you. Yeah. It could drive you crazy in itself.
It's like the first form of gaslighting.
It is, I would say, gaslighting.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And once he was home, full time, things started to escalate further. The shaking got more violent, as did his fits of thrashing and screaming. He complained of constant nightmares, of demons haunting him while he slept, and then taking control while he was awake. It was obvious that those close to Roland that something very serious was happening, with his parents assuming their son was losing their mind. Roland's parents start where most would. They brought the boy to a doctor, who basically says he was fine physically. The doctor was like, this guy, this kid is okay from a physical standpoint, but his brain seems to be real fucked up.
Look at how his limbs move as he jumps around. Yeah. He looks great.
He's like, and you're like, well, his heart sounds good. His reflexes are good. I hit both knees. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, take a lollipop. Get out of my fucking office. They say he's physically fine. So next they go to a psychiatrist. Sure. And then after that, a psychologist who both claimed him to be fine, but saying that he was a tad high strung. Just one way to put it.
Thanks.
Which is how everyone seemed to describe Roland before and after the event. So who would have thought that the exorcism wouldn't stop this kid from being stressed? Who would have thought? What a weird thing. Now, but during these times, these studies were in their infancy, with misconceptions and misunderstandings still littering the field of both, like I said, psychology and psychiatry. But even still, multiple doctors signed off on Roland's sound body and mind, not understanding where these things could possibly be coming from. So when medicine failed, his parents looked at God for help. And this next section is called, He Needs Jesus. It's about the really, like, we're on the upward hill of the roller coaster.
Sure.
And when we get to the top, right? You know how usually there's that pause before you go over? There's no pause. You're just like, oh, I'm falling now. That's what this story feels like.
I was like, up here, shit. I'm down here.
Now we're in the throes of it, you know?
Okay.
Here we go. Reverend Luther Miles Schultz, having been the family's Lutheran pastor for years, began to get involved, believing a poltergeist was taking place in the house. A poltergeist, for those who don't know, are widely believed to be spirits who take place in a home or a place. They can't necessarily leave that place.
Right.
Okay? That is important to the idea of poltergeist. That's why in the movie Poltergeist, they're like, you moved the graves, but you didn't move the bodies. I get it wrong every time, right? But that's why it's a poltergeist, because it's in that spot.
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole thing, is if you leave the house, it's like, fuck, there's a door. Mm-hmm. I don't have the key because I'm a ghost and they can't leave. Yeah. It's really, again, when you think about it, it's kind of stupid, because like, what is there a rule? Is there a force field? Is there like a 6-mile radius of the house that they could go? Like, what's the cutoff, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if they could only go because they attach themselves to an object, what's the radius of the object? If you're in a mansion, can they go to other parts of the mansion because it's big? You know?
Yeah. Does it get just like within walls? Is that what we're saying?
I don't know.
All right.
That's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's like, what is the parameters of it?
Yeah.
You know,
like,
is there
a
the
center
mega
of
pastor?
gravity? Like,
Who's the mega pastor? The one that kind of looks like a demon himself. The guy that was yelling at the lady about the jet. Kenneth Rowland. Thank you. Kenneth Copeland, right?
Oh, okay.
So like Kenneth Copeland's property is obnoxiously large. His mega church is on his property, his house, the forest where he hides all his bodies. They're all in the same vicinity of each other, right? Yeah. Where was I going with this? Fuck Kenneth Copeland. I don't remember where I was going with
honestly,
that.
you were talking about Jim Baker. I was going to say.
Fuck him too.
He needs to be exercised immediately.
They need to be executed immediately. Fuck exercising them. Fucking execute them. Anyway, I am not going to do that, FBI. It is not me. I wouldn't even say anyone else should do it. I would say everyone should actively not execute anyone. So to prove his case, I shit you not, the priest had a sleepover with Roland Doe. Really keeping up those stereotypes. Hey, Chris. Hey, Chris. What's the, I heard there was a kid, he had a reverse exorcism. You know what that is? It's when the demon takes the priest out of the boy.
By force.
It is a real problem with the institutionalized church.
Okay. Well, that's been going on for really long. So.
It's been going on. I would say they are the demons that they're trying to exorcise.
I have a quick question. Was his first name Luther, or is it because he's a Lutheran pastor, he's Reverend Luther?
What?
Reverend Luther Miles Schultz.
No, his name is just Luther.
Oh, but he's also a Lutheran
He's also
pastor.
a Luther.
Okay.
He's really into it.
I needed to get that.
He's like a D&D guy. He really based his whole life off of that.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Basically, Roland went to the guy's house, the priest, and he supposedly slept in a separate bed from him. They didn't share beds. It's not that type of thing, actually, from what it seems like. It could have been. Maybe that's why he was so upset. Mm-hmm. And the sleepover would begin, and after they were done telling secrets and prank calling pizzerias, they drifted off to sleep, ready to take care of the poltergeist in the morning. But of course, that's not how it went. Within minutes of the two laying down, Roland's bed started to shake, but not violently enough to convince Shulk of anything more of a prank. That's weird, Seemingly a little confused, he tells Roland they should sleep on the armchairs instead, because we know that ghosts don't fuck with armchairs.
Mattress? Yeah. Armchair?
That's a little heavy. So the two move to the armchairs, but again, within a few minutes, the chairs are shaking, now more violently than the bed, with one chair flipping over and throwing Roland to the floor. And then finally, Schultz tells Roland to lay on a mattress next to his bed, hoping his holy nature would keep the boy safe. But in one swift movement, the mattress gets pulled under the bed, with Roland being thrown around, smacking his head on the other side of the mattress.
Oh my god. Poor kid.
Schultz realizes that he wasn't wrong. This isn't a poltergeist. It's possession.
He had his enlightening moment.
Sick.
Light bulb went off above his head.
Yeah, the kid's like throwing himself against the room. He's like, wow. I don't think this is a poltergeist. And the kid's just slamming his face into the table. Once returned home, Roland starts to get worse. That is going to be something I say a shocking amount. You want to play a drinking game? You want to die tonight? Drink every time I said Roland gets worse. While the shaking and screaming continues, he starts to wake up morning after morning after morning with deep scratches on his arms, sometimes even being made in the presence of his mother, who swore he wasn't doing it himself. This was enough for Schultz and his associates to refer Roland's parents to the Catholic Church, with them being the premier source of knowledge for the subject. And that's exactly what they did, with Roland being interviewed by Father Albert Hughes of St. James Church. My New York accent came out there for a minute. Who reported feeling a shift of temperature in the room. His old-ass rotary phone flew across the desk, which was heavy as fuck. Apparently, Roland said something along the lines of, "Why bother me, you priest of hell?" That was pretty good.
That was solid.
All of this, combined with Roland's occult adventures with his late Aunt Tilly, would lead the priest to one conclusion. Roland was possessed by a demon and was in grave danger. Your mother sucks cocks in hell. That's what this next section is called.
That part was insane, too.
That I remember, because
Yeah.
that's so crazy.
Yeah.
Lick me. I did not lick me at all.
Lick me.
And there's the fact that it's fucking her mother. I'm not even going to get
Yeah.
into it. It's so gross.
It's okay.
So basically, the priest is like, hey, little boy, come sleep at my house for the night. He goes there. He sleeps there. After he's done getting molested, they then go to sleep. The kid is very obviously, there's something fucking wrong. Starts thrashing around. My favorite image of all time, him going underneath the bed, and every single time he puts this kid on something, he just starts shaking violently, and the priest is like, maybe that's not the place for him. I don't know why he's English. This was in Maryland.
He's just bringing him over to different pieces of furniture. Yeah. The ghosts don't like this piece.
Yeah, and the furniture is just like, and he's just like,
he's got a whole checklist.
They bring him to the modern couch, and the ghost is like it's a 90s montage. Now, Father Hughes can have an opinion he wants, but without the approval of an archbishop, an official exorcism was off the table.
Sure.
Father Hughes then decided to go and try and convince Archbishop Patrick O'Boyle to get the needed approval. After a long conversation, 10 minutes, the Archbishop signs off on the exorcist, though he is said to have done it reluctantly because he didn't really believe what was going on. But I wish he would have said no.
Yeah, like speak up. You're kind of in a position to
to be like,
speak
you're
up on these
you
things.
Fucking moron.
Yeah.
Shut up. Go back to your church.
The Archbishop.
Yeah,
of the
and
diocese.
steal everyone's money like I need you to. That's why I put you there. Shut up. All right? This is a family. That's what he says to him. It was then when Roland was taken to Georgetown University, where the exorcism would begin on February 27th, 1949. Georgetown University. Georgetown is where the exorcism took place. The exorcist took place in the movie. Yeah. All that stuff, fun stuff. So they began by stropping down a 14-year-old Roland to the hospital bed. Father Hughes began reciting to him the rite of exorcism. Do you want to recite that?
Okay.
It's on the sidebar. You see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna recite it like a priest. Give it some energy, you know, like you're exercising me, and I'm gonna be the demon riddled Roland Doe.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
Lord Jesus Christ, Word of God the Father and God of all creation, who gave authority to your holy apostles to subject demons in your name and to tread underfoot all the power of the enemy. Holy God, who among your other wonders deign to command, put demons to flight, mighty God.
Buy my hamburgers,
By whose power Satan cast down felt like lightning from heaven, I humbly invoke your holy name with fear and trembling, that strengthened by your power, I may attack with confidence the evil spirit who torments this dear creature. For you will come to judge the living and the dead in the world by fire. Amen.
I feel much better, man.
Okay.
I think Ronald McDonald was haunting me. He just kept saying, I am Ronald McDonald, and I don't know why.
That was exhilarating. Holy shit.
And now you know why they do that, you know? Imagine you had a guy in front of you with schizophrenia, and you go along with anything you say, and you get to put on a cool robe and go into a dark room, and everybody's like, you got this, guy. And then you go in, and you get a fun book, and you get to sit there and scream at some mentally ill guy in a corner, and then you get to leave and go home and go, I did the right thing. And you go to bed. Imagine that's your life. They just trained 125 of these assholes last year in the Vatican. Is that crazy? So anyway, they started doing that, which would start the usual shaking and screaming with Roland thrashing in the bed. Only a minute in, Roland manages to free one of his hands, and with it, he pulls a spring out from one of the mattresses. He swings it with force and uses it to slice Father Hughes's arm from shoulder to wrist, stopping the exorcism on the spot. Father Hughes needed over 100 stitches to fix his arm and seemingly disappeared after this, never working in that convent ever again. And over the coming days, the boy just got worse. After drink. After days of agony and seemingly demonic torture, Roland looked in the mirror one night and was horrified for what he saw. The word Lewis was carved into his chest.
Lewis.
The word Lewis had been carved into his chest, making them believe they needed to move to St. Louis to find the answer to the problem. 100% the reason why.
They just got up and left?
So the whole family moved, right? Because Roland was like, hey guys, come in here, hurry up. And he just goes, and it just is Lewis across his chest, right? Now, here, I'll save my judgment, right?
Okay.
I just gotta say, right? The whole time we're trying to find the name of the demon, and then Lewis pops up on the chat. Why didn't you take that as that's the name of the demon?
Well, Saint Louis.
But that's not the saint that they needed, and we'll see that later.
Yeah, but they weren't thinking that far.
I'm confused. They weren't thinking at all. Now, say what you want about your belief in demons, exorcisms, and so on. Something major had to be happening for a fucking entire family to move hundreds of miles away to a city with no plan whatsoever. Now, they did have family that lived there. But really, honestly, it seems like the decision was made solely on Roland's scratches and had nothing to do with them having family. That was just a bonus. Okay? But once in a suburb of St. Louis called Belle Noire, it's kind of like Bel Air, but they are possessed by fucking demons. When they get to St. Louis, they get to a suburb called Belle Noire, like I said, and they must have had what was probably the most shocking reunion with their cousins and uncles. It's just like, hey guys, what's going on? Long time no see. It's 1949. What are they going to do? Email them? Yeah. They were like, oh, long time no see. Hey, do you guys remember Roland? It's been like 3-4 years since you seen him. Yeah. He's not doing too hot. And he's just like, just like on the sidewalk. And they're like, hey, do you want that kid in my home? But even though the situation was bizarre, his family helps since they are devout Catholics.
God bless.
And everyone feels Roland would be safer in their home, though they all acknowledge that he is a little different from the last time they saw him. But night would fall, and so would Roland. That's just a little joke. Yeah. But night would fall, and Roland would start experiencing the same things he always did. Sometimes with books flying across the room. All of this in front of his cousin. Scared the shit out of this fucking poor girl. Yeah. She was like 19 in college, right? Little priestly 19-year-old fucking poor little titties. No, I'm just joking.
I was not expecting that to go out of your mouth.
But yeah, she's fucking horrified. And she decides that she's going to go see her professor at St. Louis University.
Okay.
Father Raymond Bishop, who agrees to watch Roland to observe his behavior. And on March 9th, just yesterday, what are the fucking chances? Today is March 10th. Just yesterday was the anniversary of the day that Father Bishop got involved with Roland for the first time. Okay. And was accompanied by Father Bowdern, who these two guys are basically who Father Karras was based off of. Him is just these two smashed together into one person from The Exorcist, right? Yeah. When I read the date, I was like, what are the fucking chances? Because at this time it was like 5 days from then. I was like, what are the chances we're doing this episode right in that time? It's crazy.
Excellent.
We're recording this on March 10th. So just to say, Father Bishop and Father Bowden claimed that they had not seen anything close to demonic depression when they came to see Roland. But once the priest left, the demons came back, and this time worse than ever before. The priests were called back that same night. When they tried to go into the boy's room, they found the door had been barricaded. But once inside, the priests both agreed that they had witnessed something that couldn't be anything but a case of possession, and a very bad one at that. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Andrew, why'd you give me a brief history of a history lesson about exorcisms first? That was kind of unnecessary. Yeah. Well, go fuck yourself, you piece of shit. All right? This is when the priests turned to their main source material, the Roman Rite of Exorcism, which was written in 1614.
Wow.
Okay?
Oh,
It didn't get an update until 1999. So they were using the translated Latin book from 1614 to treat this 14-year-old mental patient. Just putting it that way. And according to this book, Roland was at stage 3 of 4.
List them off for me.
The first, demon infestation. Sounds like a COD map. Which is when a place is intertwined with evil demonic energy. The second is demonic vexation, which is physical harm done to someone by demonic forces. The third is demonic obsession, which is a mental attack on a person from demonic forces. The last is demonic possession, which is the total lack of control of a person by demonic forces.
Wow.
So the idea by the priest involved was that the exorcism should be done to prevent stage 4 possession from occurring. And once again, Father Bowden received the green light from Archbishop Joseph E. Ritter to perform the exorcism. Now, Father Bowden is more of the Father Karras of the story.
Okay.
Like I said, it's a combination, but Father Bowden is who I think it was based off of.
Sure.
I don't know that for a fact, but in the movie, Father Karras kind of questions his faith, says that he might be leaving the priesthood. He doesn't really know what he's doing next, and he's looking for the next sign to show him what to do next in his life.
Right.
Father Bowden was very much in the same boat. And because of this, he felt that he needed to work on his faith and was terrified of this whole thing. But Archbishop Ritter refused to let anyone but Bowden do it, believing he was the one to get her done. There it is. We found it.
What are the fucking odds?
What are the fucking? We live in a simulation. That is nuts.
Get her done.
As soon as I read it, I got my body jolted. So basically, Bowden was terrified. Archbishop Ritter was like, "You're the guy for the job." But what I really think happened was that Bowden was like, I don't want to do this because this is fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And the Archbishop was like, yo, can you stop being such a fucking pussy? I don't want to have to bring someone else from a different district in. Can you just fucking do it, please? Yeah. You're annoying me. Get out of my office. I need to go jerk off this 13. And then he slammed the door to his office, right? So that all being said, right? They make this sound like this internal. I honestly think the church was like, bro, shut up. Who cares? Just do it. Get it done. Give it 2 days, right?
Stop being a bitch.
Just stop being such a pussy. Fucking Bowden. I'm upset for him.
This is what your priesthood has been all about. This is your time to shine.
Yeah. Just like, isn't this what you wanted when you joined the priesthood? He was like, no, not at all. No, I just thought I was going to get a fucking free house.
I'm reading something from 300 years ago in another language.
To be fair, the Bible's older. That all being said, the only thing that Bowden insisted on was that Archbishop Ritter kept a diary of all the events for internal use on future cases. They were going to be basically make it like a guide of like a how-to of possession.
Sure.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, Archbishop agreed. So Bowden went forward and began the process. And you think that he would go in, like in the movie, courageous and fearful, but stand in the face of danger. Mm-hmm. No, he trembled with fear the entire time, half-assed the entire thing, and wholeheartedly believed that this 14-year-old boy was days away from being fully controlled by a fucking demon. So he was scared shit the entire time. He didn't know what to do with himself. By the end of it, they said that he was covered in open sores because he was so stressed all the time. He lost 2 stone. I don't know how much that is an English thing. I was watching an English guy talk about it. Whatever stone is, he lost 2 of them. And it's unbelievable. What?
Almost 30 pounds.
He lost almost 30 pounds in like 4 weeks.
Holy shit.
It's unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, you could say he got worse.
Yeah, I would say that drink. Now the preparation starts for the exorcism with the demonic activity hitting a peak. Mm-hmm. The priest described the process as a battle, treating their artifacts as weapons. and we had all the common stuff that you would just likely know to be in an exorcist, right?
Right.
Like holy water, a crucifix, right?
Sure.
A copy of the Roman Rite of Exorcism.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the forearm bone of St. Francis Xavier, right? So they're said to have taken the bone of the forearm of St. Francis Xavier and put it on Roland's head and was like, God, stop being possessed. And he was like, get that away from me.
Where did they acquire this?
I'm going to say Francis Xavier's body. I don't know. I feel like all of these are fake. I 100% feel like if we could carbon date every single one of these artifacts, quote unquote, it'll just be like the fucking shin bone of a hyena. Like it's just not. Whatever. Yeah. Well, apparently we have Mary Magdalene's skull in like a fucking. Please get the fuck out of here.
That's fine.
But anything they throw at Roland was thrown right back with force, literally. Nothing was working, and even worse, the priest watched Roland as he screamed in agony, as the word hell seemed to be branded into his abdomen. After 9 full fucking hours, the priests were totally convinced that this was moving on to stage 4, and they needed to start the process ASAP. As soon as possible, brother.
That's all they needed.
Yeah, they were like, well...
Not the Lewis, but hell.
That's a fair point. Technically, even the Lewis was worse because it was like bleeding and shit. This one was just, they said it looked like it was branded from under his skin.
Okay. Holy.
Yeah. And it said hell. The days of endless exorcism started with them spending all day trying to expel the demon from Roland Doe. Roland started to turn into an animal, biting the priest, barking and growling. We've all seen the movie. After many false expellings of the demon, the priests were left tired and confused, thinking it couldn't get any worse. Now, when I say fake expellings, there's 3 full times in the documentary where they make it feel like this is over. Mm-hmm. And then it's just like, there's one where they play the music and it's almost fucking comedy. Because they're playing like Sunshine and Rainbows music and like, finally, the priest knew that Roland was good. And then it just cuts to another guy and then he's just like, but then he just wildly went downwards again. And the music just gets all dark again. It's hilarious. But yeah, you just kept, like every other time they'd be like, oh, I think he's good. And then he'd be like fine for 6 days and then he'd be terrible again. Wow. Just then, the bed started to levitate off the ground, with Roland still on top of it. And this is one of the things that this is the most famous for, is the levitating bed. Right. Leaving the priests in total disbelief as the bed slammed back down to earth. Mm-hmm. It's at this point that people all over are asked to try and figure out what happened to Roland Doe. Strangely, one of these people was Frank Bubb, a professor who worked on the Manhattan Project. He was a mathematician, and they brought him in to see if he could figure anything out. And then he claims that he saw a nightstand levitate. And then he was like, I gotta go. And he left.
Like, what am I doing here?
That is real life. That is 100% real life.
Yeah. No, I believe that.
Yeah. I don't understand why they asked him to come in.
Yeah.
What was he going to provide? He's a mathematician.
Let's bring some math into this.
This next section is called Stage 4.
Okay.
On March 23rd, just 7 days after my birthday, 8 days after my birthday, it's decided to move Roland again. So now, they were in Maryland. Mm-hmm. While they were in Maryland, they moved him to the priest's house. Then they moved him to the hospital. Then they moved him back home. Then they moved him to St. Louis. Now they're on the second hospital in St. Louis. They move him to the rectory of St. Francis Xavier's Forearm Bone College Church, where it's clear that the final stage, I added some words in there. It's clear that the final stage of possession has taken place. Night after night, Roland is subjected to hours of exorcism. All while the campus wondered why every night they'd hear screaming coming out of the church, and that's 100% real. They said every night they would open up the windows because it was hot as fuck, and they would just start screaming at this boy, and he would just be like, no, no! And people would be walking by the church like, what the fuck is going on in there? Roland would start to exhibit superhuman strength, needing 3 fully grown men to hold him down, even with him still being able to punch Father Bowden in the face, breaking his nose. Oh my God. He started speaking in Latin, and even spoke in an impossibly low-pitched voice.
I was waiting for Latin to come in.
That is it. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, almost 2 weeks into the process, Roland is sent back to his uncle's house, 5th location, to Belnor, where he starts to improve for a few days, but once again falls back into possession. During one of his fits, Roland insists that he writes down a message, and Father Bowden and Father Bishop are called to come see it. And it reads as followed.
I will stay 10 days, and will return after 4 days are up. I am the devil himself.
I am not channeling any accents there.
Yeah.
I think that was a mishmash of random things, and I'm happy with it, okay?
Yeah. It was the devil.
I don't know what this means.
Mm-hmm.
The priests never figure out what this means. The people in the documentary say it. They make a big thing out of it. Never talk about it. The article never even mentions this. I don't know what this means. Sorry. Now, this went on for another 2 weeks, where Roland was once again moved back to Maryland. And it didn't work. So they moved him back again. And this just kept going on, where they would just move him from place to place and scream at him in a different room, and they'd be like, well, it didn't work in here.
We've really advanced from the furniture. Now we're just moving settings.
It's insane.
Right.
It's like, well, maybe the ghost can't get all the way up in this tower. You know, it's so stupid. And after over a month of trying different things, finally a very worn and malnourished Father Bowden makes a breakthrough while speaking to Roland. The demon tells Father Bowden that he won't leave Roland until he utters a word that he'd never say. Bowden eventually discovers that the word is the Latin word Dominus, meaning Lord.
Dominus.
Then shouting.
Mm-hmm.
You wanna shout that at me?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I got it.
I'm gonna. They said that he was growling and barking. So ready?
Satan! Satan! I am Satan Michael! I command you, Satan, and the other evil spirits, to leave this body in the name of Dominus immediately! Now! Now! Now!
Oh, yeah, and then it seemed like the demon got hurt real bad, and then he shook one time, and then that was it. They just needed to say the word Dominus. Isn't that crazy?
Done.
And it's done.
Okay.
5 weeks, and the demon was like, finally, damn it, I was getting bored. He even went on vacation a couple times, took 6 days off at one point, went down to Turkey, you know, had a kebab, came back up, you know.
This
is he from Turkey? Where is it? Oh, Iraq is how northern Iraq.
Yeah.
Not Turkey. Oh, God, fucking damn it. I'm so bad with this shit.
That's okay.
But yeah, so then this is apparently how Roland does it. But Father Bowden is like, I don't know, guys, we shouldn't celebrate yet. This is the 17th time this has happened. And then the kid's still possessed.
Yeah.
We should wait. And then apparently they said that there was a huge boom. Everything shook. And they took that as, oh, this is done. Which is weird, because everything boomed and shook for 5 weeks. And they took that as possession. The story's over now. I'm going to start transitioning into this is bullshit. Right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think we're pretty much there. They were waiting for, like, these specific things.
Before we get into it, let me get into the discovering of this for The Exorcist, and then we can rip it apart.
Fine. Okay.
The uncovering. Roland was said to live a normal life after this, with his case being vaguely told in headlines without details of anyone knowing who or what actually happened. Who he was, not who actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the 70s, a literary major at Georgetown University named William Blatty came across the Washington Post headline, quote, "Priest frees Mount Rainier boy reportedly held in devil's grip," unquote. He became enthralled with the story and started to research it heavily, even contacting one of the priests involved, and through communication found out about the secret diary cataloging all the juicy details. After promising to change the story enough to give it nothing away, he was gifted access to the diaries, supposedly, using the story as the inspiration for The Exorcist. So that diary had never been read by anyone but the priest involved, and somehow this author got it. and then wrote the greatest horror novel / film of our time, which was protested by priests, which I find to be super ironic because it's their fucking fault. It's their fault. You wrote it down. The story that William Blatty got, is it necessarily true that he got that diary? We don't know that for a fact. And we don't know that the diary given to him was the real diary. We don't know if it was edited, any of that stuff, right?
I was gonna say, yeah, like, how can you just trust this?
So none of this is coming from William Blatty's story.
Okay.
This is all coming from the scans of the diaries that were released. There were supposedly 9 physical copies of this diary, and at some point scans were made and were released on the internet.
Okay.
Okay? Now, in the beginning, I mentioned an article that I said was the main source of info. Like I said earlier in the episode, and I told you earlier today, this episode is very dense. There was a lot more to the story that I had, and I cut a lot of stuff out. So the article doesn't play as much of a role as it did in the initial script. But the article gives a very, very detailed explanation of finding out who Roland Doe actually was, and that he wasn't from Mount Rainier, he was from Cottage City, and there's all this stuff about the address and all that stuff. It's very interesting. Go check it out. It's a great article. Strange Magazine's 5 parts. Fantastic, right? Yeah. All that being said, the story has so many details that we just cannot in any way verify. The story has stuff that we know for a fact was added afterwards.
Yeah.
And the actual story, shocking, is remarkably boring compared. Remarkably boring. Okay? All right. What really happened? Now, the Strange Magazine article, the author, Mark Obsasnik, change your last name, Mark, gives a detailed explanation of the search for the boy's true identity and address, which was obviously uncovered, as I said. But it also contains a few important details about Father Hughes, the first priest that supposedly started the entire thing. Okay? First of all, there is no written evidence at all stating Father Hughes performed an exorcism on Roland. Nor are there any hospital visit from Father Hughes. We know that the supposed Roland Doe was in the hospital. We found records of the person that has been identified of him, supposedly in Minecraft. All of that is real, blah, 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 whatever. But we have no record of him visiting a hospital. We have no record of him performing an exorcist. And most importantly, we have no record of the attack, which supposedly left him needing 100 stitches. And it seemingly never happened. Okay. None of this seemed to be true, only hearsay added over the years. Mm-hmm. In fact, after interviewing former students of his school, Obsasnik found that none of them remembered Hughes leaving for any period of time or ever being injured. So the whole story of him never practicing at that convent, that's just not true. Yeah. He was a teacher in the school. We know the high school he worked at. We know that he was there. And we have events with him in pictures without injury. Mm-hmm. It's just not true. It's just made up. And finally, Obsasnik interviewed one of the priests who was there during the exorcisms in St. Louis. This priest talks about this like, I don't understand why this is being questioned still. It's hilarious. This priest couldn't give a fucking shit about this story. It's hilarious. Yeah. Even when he was even hit by Roland during one of the exorcisms, right? He seems to give a much more subtle answers that show the detail to be far less extreme. Mm-hmm. He claimed Roland never spoke in a different voice, mimicked their Latin, and never said anything they didn't say, didn't have any super strength whatsoever. He claimed to have never had vomited or urinated, which was something that supposedly happened the entire time. All things that were prevalent in the leaked details. And finally, he didn't remember there being scratches on him, which spelled anything. And he even claims that he watched the boy scratch himself.
Listen, I kind of get that with the mimicking the speech too, because like at the end of the day, he was probably just in a in a
psychotic
and,
episode.
Yeah, and just repeating what he's hearing.
Yeah. So now there's like two camps of people. There's people that believe that Roland was mentally ill.
Sure.
And then there's a group of people that believe that Roland was doing it for attention and it went too far.
Okay.
Because the reason that people don't believe that he was mentally ill, which is fair, is because there is, if we go by the paperwork, there is no case of this happening with this person ever again.
Mm.
There's no case of this being a thing that happens to him or his family ever again. Lives a totally normal life. And in fact, the person who wrote the Strange Magazine article, again, you got to take his word for it if this is true or not, but claims to have gotten in touch with Roland Doe, the real Roland Doe, called him up and had a very brief conversation where he more or less said that it was, yes, it was him, without saying, yes, it was me. He confirmed it, like, by mistake. Like, why the fuck how did you find that out?
Yeah.
And then once it was found out, he said that he treated it more like he was super embarrassed and wanted it to go away, and less that he was freaked out by it.
Oh, yeah.
I think that this was just a kid that grew up. Maybe he had ADHD or something like that, and took it too far because he wanted attention.
Yeah.
And just didn't know the fuck was happening.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
It's just unbelievable that it like got to that point.
Because
like,
it gets to a point where you're like, I could either stop and make everyone around me look crazy and they're going to hate me, or I could just keep going and make them think that this is what happened, and whatever happens, happens. And it kind of seems like, after listening to what all the priests say, anybody that was around, whatever, it kind of seems like everyone came to that conclusion at the same time. Like, we kind of have to wrap this up because this is not real, and we just need to get it done because this is crazy. And with that, ends the story of Roland Doe.
poor Roland Doe, man.
God, what a fucking
just
story.
Kept getting worse.
He just kept rolling in that dung, not dough. Dung, which is shit. Shit. He kept rolling in shit.
Yeah. Poor kid.
Yeah. I don't think that he was like schizophrenic or anything, but I think maybe he had like what I was talking about earlier is, I kind of think, from what I could tell from the story, if we go by what we know was happening, that he was disruptive and all that, and he was claiming he didn't do it, I think maybe he just had Tourette's.
Yeah.
Because like the one thing that they said was that he had outbursts all the time, and he was like always having outbursts, and he would claim like, I'm not doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
And he would have like these tics or whatever. I think maybe he just had Tourette's.
Yeah.
And I looked it up, and it turns out, I probably didn't even need to look it up, but it turns out 1949 wasn't a great year to have Tourette's, because though it was like discovered and named in the late 1800s, they didn't do any research for it until the late 60s. So it was like no one understood exactly what it was. So the degrees of it were misunderstood. If you had a little tic, they'd be like, oh, Tourette's. But if you were screaming into the night, they didn't think, oh, that's also Tourette's. They just thought he's possessed. Yeah. That's what I feel like. It had to be something like that.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably something like that, coupled with like probably neglect at home too.
That's
just
actually really fantastic point, because his dad was said to be basically absent the entire time.
Really?
In and out of home for work. Never really there. I don't know if he was a bad father or he's just working a lot. Yeah. This is like post-war America, so culture is work hard for the American dream, all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, that's still the fucking culture, but you get it. It's like, it's I think the story is just a tragic exaggeration all along.
Yeah, 100%.
And but it fueled one of the greatest stories of all time. So realistically, if it just meant that a 14-year-old kid had to be screamed at in a room and almost die multiple times for 5 weeks, then I guess good.
It was worth it.
It was worth it, because I got to see Lick Me. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode. If you liked it, please rate, review, all that shit. Follow us on TikTok and all the other stuff. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming back. I really appreciate it.
Andrew, I always appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it.
I love coming on here.
And bye, everybody. Have a great night. And don't let Pazuzu get into your Kazuzu. Fuck.